Pokemon Day is really around the corner. February 27th will occur on Friday, so I'm sure the internet will go into a little frenzy over the weekend due to what will most likely be announced on Pokemon's 30th anniversary. But what will be announced, you may ask? Aside from the typical announcements for TCG cards, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Sleep, Pokemon Cafe Remix, and other Pokemon properties they give updates on every year, I would be highly surprised if we did not get an announcement or a teaser for Pokemon Generation 10. It is hard to wrap my head around the fact that Generation 9, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, were released on November 18th, 2022. This means in November, these games will have been out for 4 years at that point. If Pokemon is to follow tradition, Generation 10 will be released on November 20th, 2026, the third Friday of November, 1,463 days since the last generation. Not the longest amount of time between generations, but not by much, with generations 3 to 4 being 1,468 days apart. So where will we go next? Well, before we get into the potential leaks, here were my thoughts back in July. The first 9 generations have been based on areas of Japan, the United States, and most recently, Europe. As both generations 8 and 9 were based in Europe, I don't think we will get another region in that area so soon. However, should a future generation be based in Europe, I think we could see a region based on Germany or perhaps Italy, as the cultures provide many opportunities for Pokemon to explore. A third possibility could potentially be Greenland, as we have sort of gotten a hint towards the area in Ice-Q's Pokédex entries, although I feel like these areas are a later option rather than for Generation 10. Speaking of Pokédex entries hinting at other regions, the Pokédex entry of Caparajah could give us a clue to another region. The question, however, is where? In a previous video on the topic, I believe I might have been wrong to come to the conclusion of Caparajah coming from a region based on India. While that would be interesting to have a Pokemon region based on India, I now think it could be somewhere else. The elephant component of Caparajah's design could be that of an Asian elephant, which could be found in India. However, the copper part of its name could also give us a hint to somewhere else. That somewhere else could be the west coast of South America, more specifically Chile and Peru, where a lot of the world's copper supply can be found. Another area the new region could be based off of due to the franchise's popularity is Vietnam and Thailand. What I just said came from my script back in July. While I did not write in further detail, I wrote specifically Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Peru, Vietnam, and Thailand. For some reason at that time, I did not think the new region could be based off of Taiwan. Taking a step back and looking at the topic again, what I think now slightly differs, or at least my conclusions are not quite so confident and specific. The most likely regions where Generation 10, as well as future generations of Pokemon will be based on, come from the regions where the games are most popular, as well as areas hinted at in Pokédex entries. Pokemon was first released in Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia throughout the 90s, then South Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan in the early to mid-2000s, before gaining worldwide releases starting with X and Y. Additionally, Pokemon has increased its variety linguistically, going from playable in 7 languages to 10, starting with Japanese, English, German, French, Italian, and Korean, to expanding Spanish into both European and Latin American Spanish, while adding simplified and traditional Chinese. So if we go off this information, we are missing a few regions: Australia, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Alternatively, regions where German, Italian, Korean, Latin American Spanish, and Chinese are spoken. There are 1,025 Pokemon out currently, and it would take several days to go through all the Pokédex entries to see how many hint at any of these areas. There are a handful, though, that come to mind that either hint or reference these regions. Arcanine's Pokédex entries reference China, even calling it a Chinese Pokemon. Early Pokédex entries for Ponyta reference both the Eiffel Tower and Ayers Rock. Ayers Rock has been renamed to Uluru and is located in Australia. As Ponyta's other Pokédex entries speak of mountains and fields, I am leaning towards Australia with this one. Ice-Q's Pokédex entries reference the Pokemon floating towards the European-based regions from a cold place, which could hint at a region being based off of Greenland, or maybe based off of Canada, with Greenland and Iceland being a part of it. Caparajah's Pokédex entries say that they were brought to Galar and Paldea from a faraway place. If you combine the design and copper elements, this Pokemon could come from an Asia-based region, possibly India, China, or Vietnam. Raichu's Pokédex entry says that it could cause an Indian elephant to faint and incapacitate a Caparajah, which might back up Copperajah is from an Indian-based region. If you would like a video going into the Pokédex entries and finding Pokemon origin regions, let me know. So, with all of this, there is plenty of circumstantial evidence saying that there are Pokemon regions based in China, India, and Australia. But where do we go in Generation 10? What we know now that I didn't have in July are leaks. To not provoke Pokemon or Nintendo, I take all these leaks with the whole salt lick of salt. While the possible names of the game have been leaked, I am going to completely ignore those. One of the sources for leaks on X has Generation 10's codename being Gaia. Could this be a reference to the Greek goddess Gaia? While I doubt Pokemon would be so on the nose like that, I do think it would be interesting to have a region incorporate Greece and Italy together. While the two regions differ quite a bit, I think it would be interesting to have 4 sub-legendary Pokemon like Scarlet and Violet had, but have these 4 based off of the Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. Another one of these leaks has said that Generation 10 will be similar to Sun and Moon, where it will be based on islands. Instead of Hawaii, the region, if the leak is true, would be based off of Southeast Asia. As I said, one is to take these leaks with a grain or pound of salt, but I mentioned this as one of the areas on this potential region leak includes Indonesia, which is right next to Papua New Guinea. This fact is very interesting to me as I have spoken about Papua New Guinea before. In my Pokemon Generation 9 prediction video, I thought perhaps the region could be based off of Australia to include Papua New Guinea, because of some of the information in Corsolas Pokédex entries. Are you excited for Generation 10? Where do you think the region will be based on? Australia, Southeast Asia, around Canada? Let me know down in the comment section below.